They told you the 2026 World Cup would belong to the Giants. They told you the trophy was already half engraved with the names of football's royalty. They told you the expansion to 48 teams was just a formality, a polite gesture, a financial maneuver dressed up as inclusion. But what is unfolding right now on the grandest stage this sport has ever built is not the story they sold you. It is the story they prayed you would never see. Because somewhere between the broadcast deals and the billion-dollar projections, between the carefully curated highlight reels and the primetime slots reserved for the usual suspects, something has gone catastrophically wrong for FIFA. And the deeper you look, the more you realize this was never supposed to happen. Stay with us, because by the end of this video, you will understand exactly why the 2026 World Cup has become FIFA's worst nightmare, why the so-called underdogs have hijacked the narrative the powerful tried to write, and why the knockout stage you are about to witness will look nothing like the one the executives in Zurich imagined when they signed off on this expanded format years ago. If this is the kind of coverage you have been searching for, the kind that pulls back the curtain on what is really happening behind the spectacle, hit subscribe and turn on notifications now, because what is coming next is unlike anything you have heard about this tournament. Here is the contradiction at the heart of everything. FIFA expanded this World Cup to 48 teams under one quiet assumption. The newcomers would show up, fill the bracket, lose politely, and disappear. The powerhouses, the brands, the billion-dollar jerseys would do what they always do: dominate the screens, sell the sponsorships, and carry the tournament toward a familiar final. That was the plan. That was the promise whispered to broadcasters. That was the math behind the expansion. But the math has collapsed. Because the underdogs did not come to participate, they came to conquer. And nowhere is that more painfully, more beautifully evident than in the story of the Democratic Republic of Congo. Sit with that name for a moment. DR Congo. A nation that had not tasted World Cup football in decades. A country whose footballing heart has been broken so many times it stopped daring to dream out loud. They have lived through qualification campaigns that ended in tears, through near misses that felt like cruelties, through generations of talent that never got the stage they deserved. And then came this tournament, and with it came a controversy no scriptwriter would have dared invent. Their most iconic supporter, the man whose face has become inseparable from Congolese football passion, was caught in a visa standoff that made global headlines. A bureaucratic wall thrown up between a fan and the team he had followed across continents. Think about that for a moment. A supporter denied entry to the very celebration his nation had waited a lifetime to attend. The pressure before their decisive group stage match was suffocating. Back home, streets emptied, markets shut down, entire neighborhoods crowded around single screens. A country of over 100 million people held its breath as one. And on that pitch, the Leopards played like men who understood exactly what was riding on every pass, every tackle, every blade of grass. They did not just win. They qualified for the knockout stage. They wrote their names into a history book that had ignored them for far too long. And when the final whistle blew, the roar that erupted was not just for a football match. It was the sound of a nation being seen again. But Congo is not an isolated miracle. Congo is the headline of a movement. Pull back further and the picture grows darker for FIFA's commercial dreams, because across this tournament, African nations have delivered the most historic collective performance the continent has ever produced at a World Cup. Multiple African teams advancing, multiple African teams toppling the seeded sides, multiple African flags being waved in stadiums where their presence was once treated as a novelty. This is no longer a novelty. This is a takeover. And it is happening in real time, in front of cameras that were pointed in entirely different directions. Then there is Cape Verde. Cape Verde. An island nation of barely 500,000 people, debutantes on the world stage, a team that was supposed to be a stepping stone for someone else's highlight reel. Instead, they have turned their debut into a fairy tale that football historians will study for decades. They played without fear. They played without the burden of expectation. They played like a nation that knew this moment might never come again, and they refused to waste a single second of it. And every time they took the field, they reminded the world that population size does not measure heart, and that a flag does not need to be famous to be feared. Now look north. Look at Canada, a country that for generations was treated as football's polite guest, a host nation more comfortable on ice than on grass. This tournament was supposed to be their soft introduction to the global game, a chance to wave at the cameras and bow out gracefully. Instead, Canada has delivered a breakthrough campaign that has rewritten what their program is capable of, beating sides ranked far above them, playing with a tactical maturity nobody predicted, and announcing to the football world that the cold north is no longer a tourist in this sport. They are residents now, and they are dangerous. And then there is Mexico, a perfect group stage. Not strong, not impressive, perfect. Every match a statement, every performance a reminder that El Tri, written off for years as a team in decline, has rebuilt itself into something sharper, something hungrier, something that traditional European powers do not want to meet in a knockout round. Mexico did not just qualify. Mexico arrived. Before we go any deeper, if this is the kind of breakdown you have been searching for, the kind nobody else is willing to give you, subscribe and turn on notifications right now, because what is coming next is the part FIFA truly did not want anyone to put into words. The part where the entire commercial logic of this tournament begins to crack. Because here is what every one of these stories means when you stack them together. The expanded format was sold as a way to grow the game, but it was designed with the quiet assumption that growth meant dilution. More teams, weaker matches, easier paths for the giants. That was the bet. That was the model. And that model has been demolished. Stack the evidence. Congo through to the knockouts. Cape Verde dazzling on debut. African nations rewriting their continental ceiling, Canada breaking through, Mexico flawless. And these are not isolated upsets buried in the early rounds. These are dark horses now standing in the knockout bracket, fully armed, fully fearless, and fully capable of eliminating the brands that were supposed to carry this tournament to its scripted conclusion. Think about what that means for the powerhouses. Every European giant, every South American titan, every team whose face was already printed on the marketing materials, now has to walk into knockout matches against opponents who have nothing to lose and everything to prove. Opponents who have already shocked the world once and are hungry to do it again. Opponents who do not care about reputation, do not care about FIFA rankings, do not care about the broadcast schedule built around their elimination. And that is the nightmare. That is the unspoken fear inside every boardroom that bet on a familiar final. Because a familiar final is no longer guaranteed. A familiar final may no longer even be likely. And yet, pull back one more time, and you see something even bigger than football economics. You see the soul of this tournament returning. The World Cup was never meant to be a private members club for the same 6 nations. It was never meant to be a predictable parade of predictable winners. It was meant to be the one stage on earth where every nation, no matter its size, no matter its history, no matter its bank account, could walk out under the lights and write something unforgettable. That promise had been quietly eroding for decades, until now, until Congo, until Cape Verde, until Canada, until Mexico, until an entire continent finally refused to be the background of someone else's story. So here's the truth FIFA did not want you to assemble for yourself. The expanded format did not weaken the World Cup, it liberated it. It did not flood the bracket with filler, it flooded the bracket with fearlessness. The giants are still there, yes. The brands are still there, yes. But they are no longer the only authors of this story. They are sharing the pen now, whether they like it or not, with nations the football establishment had spent generations underestimating. The knockout stage that awaits us will not be a coronation. It will be a collision. A collision between the world football was sold and the world football has chosen to become. And somewhere in that collision, a dark horse is going to do something this sport will talk about for the next 50 years. Maybe Congo, maybe Cape Verde, maybe Canada, maybe Mexico, maybe a name we have not even put on our lips yet. So what do you think? Is this the greatest World Cup ever assembled? Or is it the moment football's old order finally cracks for good? Drop your prediction in the comments, tell us which dark horse you believe is about to make history, and tell us which giant you think is about to fall. If this breakdown gave you something the mainstream coverage refused to, hit like, hit subscribe, and stay with us, because the next few weeks of this tournament are going to rewrite everything you thought you knew about this sport. They told you the giants would win. They told you the script was already written. They told you the underdogs were just there to fill the seats. But the underdogs heard them, and the underdogs answered. And football, real football, the football of dreamers and outsiders and forgotten nations, is finally, beautifully, unstoppably having the last word.